My heart still pounds with the memory of that day. The day my son's fiancée, Chloe, stood on the threshold of my $5 million villa and told me to stay away. It wasn't a request. It was an order delivered with a cold, steely glint in her eyes that made it clear I was a nuisance, an obstacle to be removed. "You can't stay here," she said, her voice dripping with an authority she hadn't earned. "We've decided it's time for you to move into a home more suitable." My home. The magnificent villa my husband and I had built, brick by brick, from the ground up, with our own 2 hands. It was a monument to our love, a symbol of everything we had achieved together. And now, this woman, this stranger, was trying to snatch it from me. I remember her standing there, framed by the imported mahogany door, her designer dress a stark contrast to my worn apron. She looked like a gilded cage, beautiful on the outside but hollow within. She had a plan. I could see it in her calculating gaze. She was a gold digger, and my son, bless his innocent heart, was too blind to see it. He saw love where I saw a ledger. He saw a future where I saw a theft in progress. He saw a wife where I saw a predator. And so, as she stood there, a vision of false innocence, I made a promise to myself. She could try to take my home, my son, my future. But she would not succeed. She thought she was so clever, so cunning. She thought she had all the pieces in place. But she had no idea what she was up against. She had no idea that her meticulously crafted, greedy little plan was about to collapse in a way that neither of us could have ever seen coming. He was my world, my son, my only child. From the moment I held him, tiny and perfect, I knew my purpose. I was a mother, and he was my life's work. My husband and I poured everything into him, not just money but our hearts, our time, our very souls. We were a unit of 3, a fortress of love. We vacationed together, we cooked together, and we celebrated every milestone together, big and small. He grew into a good man, kind, intelligent, and a little naive. The kind of man who would believe the best in everyone, a trait I had always admired but now feared. Then came Chloe. I remember the first time he brought her home. She was a vision, all blonde hair and perfect posture, her smile as dazzling as the sun. But even then, something felt off. She held my hand a moment too long, her gaze a fraction too calculating. She complimented my home, calling it so charmingly rustic, which, coming from her, felt more like a passive-aggressive jab than a genuine compliment. I noticed her eyes, not on me or my son, but on the art on the walls, the antique furniture, the view from the window. She was cataloging our wealth, not connecting with our family. I tried to ignore the subtle red flags, the little moments that chipped away at my peace. She'd always find a way to subtly undermine me. If I shared a childhood story about my son, she'd chime in with a new, more mature anecdote about him, as if to say, "That's the old him, this is the new him." She'd suggest changes to our traditions, always framed as modern upgrades. "Family movie night is so old-fashioned," she'd say. "We should go to the city's new rooftop bar instead." She was trying to erase my history with my son, to replace me in his life piece by piece. The worst part was how she played him. She'd say things to me like, "He tells me he's been so stressed at work lately. I told him he needs to relax and let someone else take care of things." It was a quiet power play, a way to insinuate that he needed her more than he needed me, that his dependence on her was growing while his bond with me was weakening. He was too busy falling in love to see it. He saw her caring for him. I saw her isolating him. I tried to talk to him, but she had become his shield. He'd get defensive, saying I was just overthinking things, that I needed to give her a chance. I would look at him and see the same boy who used to grab my hand and tell me I was his best friend. Now there was a chasm between us, a space filled with her unspoken judgments and subtle manipulations. She was an architect of distance, meticulously building a wall between my son and me. The warmth I once felt with him was now tinged with a constant, simmering anxiety. I knew this wasn't just about a clash of personalities. This was a war for my son's heart and, as it turned out, for my home. I felt the storm gathering on the horizon, but I never could have predicted the sheer force of the hurricane that was about to hit. All I knew was that I was losing my son, and with him, a part of myself. The home we built together was more than just bricks and mortar. It was the last bastion of our life as a family, and she was coming for it all. The first big crack in our relationship came with the holidays. My son, Mark, had always spent Christmas Eve with me, a sacred tradition we'd held since he was a boy. We'd bake my mother's famous sugar cookies, watch classic movies, and reminisce about our favorite memories. This year, Chloe decided to update the tradition. Mark and I have decided to spend Christmas Eve with my family this year, she announced over a strained dinner, a forced smile plastered on her face. It's time to create our own traditions. My heart sank. My son, ever the peacemaker, looked at me with an apologetic expression. It's just for this year, Mom, he said. We can do something else. But I knew it wasn't just this year. This was a test, a small victory for Chloe to show me who was in control now. The holiday season that year was a blur of lonely days and silent phone calls. The cookies I baked sat untouched in a jar, a bitter reminder of a tradition lost. After that, her behavior grew bolder, the little digs evolving into outright criticisms. She started picking fights with me over trivial things, then running to Mark, painting herself as the victim. Your mother is so difficult, she'd tell him. She just doesn't like me. She was a master manipulator, and my son, so eager to please, fell for it every time. I remember an especially tense dinner. We were discussing my husband's retirement plan, and I mentioned the villa, our future, and our shared dream. Chloe, without missing a beat, scoffed. Future? That's what you call it. You're both living in the past. Mark and I have bigger plans than sitting in this old house waiting to die. The words were a dagger to my heart. Mark, for the first time, looked uncomfortable. Chloe, he said, his voice barely a whisper. That's enough. But it wasn't enough for her. The next day, I received an uneasy text from Mark. Mom, Chloe and I have decided to get a house of our own. We need some space. You're being difficult, and I need you to understand that she's my priority now. The knot in my stomach tightened. He was choosing her. He was choosing her over me. The final straw came when she started spreading rumors. She told a family friend that I was going senile, that I had a hoarding problem, and that I was in desperate need of a caretaker. The whispers reached me through a concerned relative, who, with a heavy heart, asked me if I was okay. The humiliation was unbearable. My son's fiancée was not just trying to replace me. She was trying to erase me. I confronted Mark, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and hurt. Is this what you want? I asked him. To let her destroy our family? Is this what you want our future to be? He looked at me, his eyes clouded with confusion. Mom, she didn't mean to hurt you, he said. She's just worried about you. She wants what's best for you. But I knew the truth. She didn't want what was best for me. She wanted what was best for her. She wanted my son, my home, my life. And she was going to get it, one lie, one manipulation, one rumor at a time. The tension was suffocating. I felt like I was in a pressure cooker, and Chloe was slowly turning up the heat. I knew, with a chilling certainty, that this was just the beginning. The storm I had been fearing was no longer on the horizon. It was here. My world shattered on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in my garden, pruning the roses my husband and I had planted together, lost in a memory of a time when life felt simple and whole. The scent of the blossoms was a comfort, a whisper of a love that was now just a ghost in the house. The sound of a car crunching on the gravel driveway startled me. It was Chloe's sleek black sedan, and as she stepped out, I saw my son Mark in the passenger seat, his face a mask of discomfort. She strode towards me, her heels sinking into the soft earth of the lawn, a strange, triumphant smile on her face. We need to talk, she said, her voice sharp and devoid of any warmth. Mark remained silent, his gaze fixed on the ground. What is it, Chloe? I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew this was it. This was the moment she had been building towards. Mark and I have decided that it's time for you to move out, she said, her words a cold, cruel slap. This house is too much for you to handle. It's too big, too expensive. You need to be in a place where you can be looked after. A place more suitable. I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked at my son, pleading with my eyes for him to say something, to defend me, to defend us. He looked up, his eyes filled with a pained conflict. "Mom," he started, his voice a whisper, "it's for the best." My mind reeled. This wasn't a suggestion. It was an ultimatum. The words echoed in my ears. "This house is ours now." She didn't say it, but the subtext was crystal clear. She had come to take what was mine. "And just so we're clear," she continued, her voice hardening, "it's not just about the house. You need to stay away. No more surprise visits. No more late-night calls. We need to live our lives. You're holding us back." The words were a brutal gut punch. She was not just taking my home. She was taking my son. She was severing the bond we had, trying to cut me out of his life completely. I looked at her, at the triumphant smirk on her lips, and for the first time, I saw the true depths of her greed. It wasn't just about the money. It was about power, control, and a twisted desire to possess my son entirely. But as the initial shock wore off, a quiet anger began to simmer within me. My son's conflicted reaction, the way he couldn't meet my gaze, the way Chloe was doing all the talking, it all clicked into place. This wasn't his idea. He was being manipulated, coerced. He was a pawn in her game, and she was playing a different game than I had initially thought. I looked at Chloe, at her smug, victorious face. She thought she had won. She thought she had all the cards. But as she delivered her cruel ultimatum, a new thought formed in my mind. She had a plan, yes, a greedy, selfish plan. But I had a lifetime of memories, a lifetime of love, and a newfound clarity about who she truly was. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place. Her story, the one she told my son, was full of holes. And as I stood there, watching her revel in her perceived victory, I began to take mental notes, cataloging every lie, every manipulation, every cruel word. I had a new mission now. This wasn't just a battle for my home. It was a war for my son's heart, and I wasn't going to lose. I had been a mother, but now I was a warrior. She had made her move. Now it was my turn. The initial shock gave way to a cold, hard resolve. I sat in my quiet study, a room filled with my husband's books and the faint scent of old paper and leather. My hands, still trembling from the confrontation, picked up the framed photograph of my husband and me on our wedding day. His face, so full of love and life, gave me strength. He built this home for us, and I would not let some conniving opportunist take it away. I knew my son was a casualty, a victim of her cunning manipulations. I couldn't fight her with emotion or tears. That's what she wanted. My battle would be fought with intellect, with strategy, with the kind of meticulous planning that had built this empire in the first place. I picked up the phone and made a call. Not to my son, but to my husband's longtime lawyer, Arthur. We'd planned for every contingency in life, but we never expected to face an enemy within our own family. "Arthur," I said, my voice steady, "I need to talk to you about the trust and the property deed. I think we have a problem." He came to the villa that very evening, a grim expression on his face. I laid out the whole sordid story, the subtle digs, the rumors, and the final, brutal ultimatum. He listened without interruption, his gaze fixed on my face, taking in every detail. Then, he asked for the original property deed, the one my husband and I had signed so many years ago. He unrolled the thick parchment on my husband's desk, his eyes scanning the fine print. "You were smart," he said, a faint smile gracing his lips. "You and Robert. You set up a trust, didn't you?" I nodded. "Robert insisted on it," I said. "He said it was the only way to be sure." He pointed to a specific clause, one I had almost forgotten. The trust stipulated that the property could not be sold or transferred while either I or my son were living in it. The trust, and the property it contained, would only be dissolved upon my passing or if I willingly vacated the property and relinquished control. This was my leverage, my ace in the hole. We spent hours poring over the legal documents, discussing the implications. We discovered a small, seemingly insignificant detail. The trust also had a clause that allowed me to petition for a full audit of all assets in the event of a significant change in my son's financial status, specifically if a new partner were to enter the picture and commingle funds without a prenuptial agreement. It was a failsafe my husband, a man who believed in preparing for the worst, had put in place. It was a direct line to her motives. Arthur explained it all to me. "She's not just after the house," he said. "She's after everything. She probably thinks you'll sell the house and divide the money, or that your son will inherit it and she'll get it through him. But with this trust, the house is in a legal purgatory. It's yours until you decide otherwise, and if she's pushing you out, it's because she wants you to willingly give it up. She needs you to sign it over." A quiet, grim satisfaction spread through me. She thought she was so clever, but she was a fool. She hadn't bothered to check the legal fine print, to understand the intricate web of security my husband had woven around our assets. She was so focused on the prize, she never saw the trap. And so, my plan began to form. I would not give her what she wanted. I would not move. I would not sign anything. I would remain a ghost in my own home, a silent, unmoving obstacle. And as she grew more desperate, more aggressive, she would make a mistake. She would reveal her true intentions, not just to me, but to my son. I was no longer a victim. I was a guardian, a protector of my husband's legacy and my son's future. The trap was set. Now, all I had to do was wait for her to spring it. I could feel the tension, the quiet calm before the storm. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that the game was about to change. Chloe grew bolder with each passing day. She started showing up at the villa unannounced, not to visit, but to inspect. She measured rooms, took pictures, and even went so far as to bring a decorator to discuss renovations. Her actions were a blatant display of ownership, a deliberate attempt to make me feel like a trespasser in my own home. I watched her, a ghost in the corners of my life, a silent observer taking mental notes, a plan of my own forming. The final confrontation came on a blustery Tuesday. Chloe had a realtor with her. They were discussing the listing price for the villa, right there in my living room, as if I were a piece of furniture to be sold with the house. The realtor, an older woman with a sympathetic gaze, looked at me with a hint of confusion. "And you'll be moving to the new accommodations?" she asked, her voice cautious. Chloe cut me off before I could speak. "Yes," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "My mother-in-law is a bit forgetful. She's decided it's best to downsize and let us take over." That was it. The moment I had been waiting for. The culmination of her lies, her manipulations, and her greed. I looked at Chloe, a small, knowing smile on my face. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, my voice as calm as a summer lake. "And neither is this house." Chloe laughed, a brittle, high-pitched sound. "Don't be ridiculous," she said, her eyes flashing with anger. "The deed is in Mark's name, and he has full authority." "No, it isn't," I said, my voice a quiet whisper. The realtor looked from me to Chloe, her brow furrowed with confusion. I turned to the realtor. "You see," I began, my voice clear and steady, "this house is not just in Mark's name. It's in a trust my husband and I created years ago. A trust that stipulates the property cannot be sold or transferred while either I or my son reside here." The color drained from Chloe's face. Her triumphant smirk vanished, replaced by a look of sheer, unadulterated shock. The realtor's eyes widened. "Is that true?" she asked, looking at Chloe. Chloe stammered. It's a small detail. It's just a formality. We can work around it." "No, you can't," I said, my voice hardening. "Because there's another clause. One that I just enacted. A clause that allows me to petition for a full audit of all assets if a new partner commingles funds without a prenuptial agreement. And you, my dear, convinced my son not to get one." The words hit her like a physical blow. She stumbled back, her eyes wide with a horrifying realization. She hadn't just been playing a game. She had been setting herself up for a catastrophic fall. She had been so blinded by her own greed that she had missed the most important detail of all. She thought she was taking everything, but she had walked into a legal minefield. I continued, my voice gaining momentum. You see, my husband was a very smart man. He knew that people like you existed. He knew that the greatest threat to a son's inheritance isn't a bad business deal or a poor investment, but a predator disguised as a partner. He set this trap for you, and you walked right into it. Chloe's eyes darted towards the door, a desperate need to escape etched on her face. Her perfectly crafted plan was in tatters. The house, the money, the life she had so meticulously planned, it was all a mirage. She had played the long game, but she had lost to a player who had been in the game for a lifetime. I looked at her, at the raw desperation in her eyes, and felt a quiet, powerful satisfaction. This wasn't just a victory for me. It was a victory for my husband's legacy, for the love and hard work that had built this home. She thought she had all the cards, but she had failed to realize that the deck was never in her favor to begin with. The house was not just a possession. It was a fortress, a symbol of a love that she could never touch, a home that would never be hers. I had been a mother, but now I was the last defender of a legacy, and I had won. The moment the words left my mouth, the room fell silent. The realtor, a seasoned professional, quickly assessed the situation and, with a curt nod to me and a look of profound pity for Chloe, made a swift exit. Chloe stood there, her face a mask of disbelief and rage. The carefully constructed facade of the caring fiancé crumbled, revealing the ugly truth beneath. She began to shriek, not with anger, but with a raw, primal frustration. You old witch," she spat, her voice a venomous hiss. "You set me up. This was all a trap." My son, Mark, who had been a silent observer, finally looked at her, truly looked at her. He saw the ugly, selfish monster that I had seen all along. His face, which had been a canvas of confusion and guilt, now reflected a dawning, terrible realization. "Chloe," he said, his voice trembling, "what did you do?" She turned on him, her fury now directed at the source of her failed plan. "What did I do? I tried to secure our future. Your mother was just an obstacle. We could have had it all." Her words, so full of contempt and greed, were the final piece of the puzzle for him. He saw the truth, not just in my words, but in her own hateful outburst. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by Chloe's ragged breathing. She had been so sure of herself, so confident in her ability to manipulate, that she had never considered the possibility of a hidden trap. The trust, the property deed, the prenuptial clause, they were all a testament to a love and foresight she could never comprehend. The fallout was swift and brutal. My lawyer, Arthur, sent a cease and desist letter, officially putting an end to her attempts to sell the house. Her legal counsel, upon reviewing the trust, advised her to back down, warning her that any further action would be a waste of time and money. The public humiliation was the final nail in the coffin. Rumors spread like wildfire among our social circle. The woman who had so publicly tried to ruin me was now the subject of whispers and pity. She had won the battle for my son's heart, but she had lost the war for my home. Her victory was hollow, her spoils a handful of dust. In the days that followed, Mark came to me. He didn't apologize with words, but with his actions. He brought me my favorite tea, sat with me in the garden for hours, and talked about everything and nothing. He was no longer the conflicted man caught between two worlds. He was my son again. He had to learn the hard way that a mother's love is not a transaction, and that true love is not measured in square footage or dollar signs. There was no victory dance, no cruel, "I told you so." The satisfaction I felt was not born of spite, but of a quiet, profound relief. I had not just saved my home, I had saved my son. I had shown him that some things are worth fighting for, not with anger and hate, but with unwavering love and quiet strength. The villa was no longer just a house. It was a symbol of a legacy preserved and a family restored. And in the end, that was a far greater victory than any amount of money could ever buy. The storm had passed, leaving behind a profound stillness. Sitting in my garden, amidst the blooming roses that had witnessed my pain and my resolve, I felt a quiet sense of peace. The battle for my home had taught me more than I could have ever imagined. It was a harsh lesson in the nature of greed, a force so blinding it can turn a seemingly normal person into a monster. Chloe was so consumed by her desire for money and status that she lost her humanity. She saw love as a transaction, family as an obstacle, and my son as a means to an end. It was a chilling realization that some people, when faced with wealth, don't just want a piece of the pie, they want the whole bakery, and they don't care who they have to hurt to get it. But the most powerful lesson I learned was about family loyalty and self-respect. For a while, I felt helpless, a ghost in my own life. I had to learn to find my voice again, to stand up not just for myself, but for the legacy my husband and I had built. My son's loyalty had been tested, but in the end, the truth, and a mother's unwavering love, was stronger than any lie. The moment he saw her true colors, he chose me. That choice was a victory in itself, a testament to a bond that money could never break. I also learned a great deal about self-respect. I could have begged, pleaded, or given in to her demands. But I chose to fight with dignity and intelligence. I didn't stoop to her level. Instead, I used the very tools she thought she could wield, law and strategy, to turn her own greed against her. The satisfaction of watching her plans unravel was not about vengeance. It was about reclaiming my life and my honor. It was about proving that you can be kind and vulnerable without being weak. This experience changed me. It made me tougher, wiser, and more appreciative of the love that truly matters. Now, I have to ask you, would you have exposed her before the wedding or let her trap herself? Was my revenge too harsh or exactly what she deserved? If your child's partner tried to cut you off for money, what would you do?